Podcast is brought to you by Steel Core Industrial Construction and Welding Supply. If you can weld it, drill it, cut it, or bolt it, Steel Core has it. The largest selection of nuts, bolts, welding supplies, and construction equipment in the southern United States, Steel Core has what you need to keep your job going. With more than $4 million in on-hand inventory ready to deliver to your site today, serving North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and the rest of the country. Call 864-764-1599. That's right, call Steel Core today, 864-764-1599. All right, gentlemen, thank you guys for coming down. I know you had a little bit of a drive, and want to start off, first of all, by thanking you for being an American manufacturing company. You know, it's sad that we live in a country where that's kind of fading, and I love to see American entrepreneurship, American manufacturing, ingenuity being brought back here to the States and kept here. First, why don't we start by just a little introduction. We have Shane and Travis with Kelly Engineering. So if you don't mind.
I'm Travis Middleton. I'm Vice President of Operations for Kelly Engineering. My background is I started out in fabrication and just worked my way up. Started out with textiles, moved into some tire fabrication. You know, these are the big plants that was in Greenville in the area, was textiles to start with. I come in at the end of that, and then it was moving into some automation, tire manufacturers. Different companies would do stuff for big companies that made tires in the area. And then, like I said, automation, and moved into Kelly Engineering.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How about yourself?
Shane Langley. I'm Director of Sales for Manufacturing. Been with Kelly Engineering. Me and Travis both been there around 7 years now. Mm-hmm. My background is mainly in machining, so worked in aerospace, medical, production shops, job shops. I also did some custom tool grinding as well, so kind of every facet of machining, and just kind of fell into Kelly Engineering and been there ever since.
Gotcha. So on a day-to-day basis, so you're responsible for overseeing operations, and I'm assuming you're in a business development role. Am I understanding that correctly? Yes. Yeah. So from I guess a dynamic duo here, right? Mm-hmm. You're going out finding the work, and you're making sure that it's getting back out.
That's right. Our relationship, like our CEO said to us many times, me and Shane have, like we said, we've worked together for 7 years, and our relationship, I feel like, is the most important. Mm-hmm. And we have a special relationship. Like I said, we're like family. And like I said, when me and Shane are intense with each other, we've had people try to get in the middle of us, and it's best for them to stay away because we have our own way of dealing with each other, which is good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, we kind of feed off of each other, and we both know that it's just our drive to want to get things done and have it done right. You know, we both love manufacturing. That's the big thing. And we both worked, we worked with each other this entire time. I ran the machine shop side, the machining side of things. Travis ran the fabrication side of things.
Okay.
And, Travis started to move more towards the role of like day-to-day, and I started to move more towards the role of dealing with the customers and sales and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of naturally, I guess, moved into those directions. But I think that time definitely helped us out working together because it helped us work through a lot of the issues that got it out of the way to now with the roles we're in. We have to be able to work good together. We have to be able to communicate.
Right. Absolutely. You mentioned fabrication and machining. Now, I understand that you guys do both, and you do your own engineering in-house, right?
Yep.
That's correct.
What percentage is Kelly fabrication over machining, or is there a even split there, or?
Shane has more of the direct numbers, but I think it's pretty close to even. 2023, it wasn't so even, but this year is pretty much back to even.
Yeah, I mean, we honestly kind of have some like ups and downs in each department. There's times where we're super machine heavy, times where we're super fab heavy, times where we're super heavy on the automation side of things as well. I'd say it's probably in this 50-50, 60-40. I mean, super close between all three of those, I guess, departments, if you will. But like right now, we're super heavy on the machining side.
Okay.
And, 2 or 3 months ago, we were super heavy on the fabrication side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it just kind of goes up and down. It just depends on the trend that we're in for that time.
Are you guys working with certain contractual customers, or is this a job shop? Can I call and have something made from you, or is it mostly just contract work that you're doing?
So we try to do contract manufacturing. That's what we want to do, but we also have customers that come to us and it's a one-time thing.
Right.
It could be big, it could be small. We process small purchase orders. We process massive purchase orders.
Right. Okay. Well, walk me through Kelly Engineering as a company. What separates Kelly from, say, the company down the street, so to speak?
So for us, it's always been about the people. I mean, like when Matt started, I think he hurt some people's feelings because people said, that's our CEO, Matt Kelly. People said, you can't just buy machines and go to work. Well, I think he understood how important people are, right? And so we started with our people and then didn't say no to any project, which is hard for both of us to still get away from, because when you're first starting, you'll say yes to any project that comes in.
Absolutely.
And that's how we started.
Right.
And like I said, our slogan is find a better way. And that's what we've been doing, and we still trying to do that. But one thing I will say, I've been in Greenville, Spartanburg area my whole life. And again, the background of this area was textiles. And when you got automotive groups moving in to South Carolina, they moved here because of the people. And it is so important, and we strive. Sometimes you get away from it, but you have to take care of your people. And that's what we try to do.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a testament in itself. You know, I think a lot of people get too focused on the bottom line, and forget that who's driving that bottom line is your employees. You know, your shop folks, you know, the people, you treat them right, they'll care about the product that goes out the door. That's good. Like to hear that. From a industry point of view, what is your predominant industries that you're serving or looking to serve, I should say?
I mean, we are extremely diverse when it comes to, you know, the type of people that we're doing work for and the industries that we're in. So we're really trying to make a push for, you know, aerospace, defense contracts as well. That's become something that we've really been pushing for. A lot of the beginning of Kelly Engineering came from the transit side of things and food and beverage. Those were our two big customers. And then we got into, I guess, somewhat defense contracting. We had a, you know, National Guard contract that we were dealing with. But again, it's just kind of grown into a bunch of different stuff. I mean, when we got our aerospace certification, we thought that it was going to be only good for aerospace companies coming to us. But we've had time and time after time where people have come to us and said, the reason we chose you guys is because you're aerospace certified. It just gives you that extra level of quality that some places don't have, and they just feel they don't have to worry about it at that point. They know they're going to be getting a company that has processes. They've, you know, got their ways they want to do things, and that you're going to get a good product.
Right. The credibility that comes with that piece of paper is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You know, for a lot of, we'll just talk to the audience. We do some DOD work here, and the paperwork and the processes involved in that are tremendous.
It's insane.
You know, people think,
we're going through with it right now.
We have a new customer right now that we're going through it, and it's even the packaging is just insane.
Well, and even little stuff you don't think about, like, you know, we send certificate of conformance paperwork with our orders for, you know, people that require our, you know, FAI paperwork, or if they're need an aerospace certification. And, you know, we've never had an issue with it before. And, you know, this company comes in and they're like, yeah, your certificate of conformance isn't going to work. Okay, well, what's some issues? And it even came down to, like, it said inspector's initials, and they wanted it to say inspector's signature. You know, just little minute stuff like that.
Yep.
It's wild.
Yeah.
We may send a matter of fact, that bolt right there, that was part of leftover of a manufactured bolt that goes inside of a submarine. So it's what they would call a critical onboard component. Well, you might sell them one, you know, that's a big bolt, but you might sell them a little bitty handful of nuts and bolts, and it's got a stack of papers that thick to go with it, you know. And, so definitely, when you have those certifications, and the folks down the street don't, it goes a long way for someone who's looking for quality.
Yes.
Right. You know. So, well, I'm curious. Let's dive back into both of y'all's backgrounds just a little bit. What was how did you get into the trades? Whoever wants to go first, I'd love to hear your story.
Go ahead.
So this is wild. I was in high school, and I had actually signed up for auto mechanics, and auto mechanics was full. And I remember the principal of the high school said, "Why don't you take welding?"
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "Okay." So I went. I took welding, and this is something too that's important as we hear as I talk about my story. And why I appreciate people is there's people that has affected my life that I think about every day, and then there's some that I think about monthly, and then there's some that I didn't have a good relationship with, but I still think about them and how to do better, right? So I had two teachers there. One of them was a welding teacher, and can I name his name?
Absolutely.
I don't think he's here.
Yeah.
One of them his name was Edward Butts, and he was from New York, and he had moved down here kind of part of retirement and teaching. I learned a lot from him. He was more pipe welding, that kind of stuff, which all my pipe welders out there, y'all do a great job. That is a hard, I never could get that. I was more sheet metal, TIG welding. And I learned that they had a fabrication teacher there, and his name was Gerald Darnell. There it is. I hadn't said it in a long time. I think Gerald is still alive. And not that I'm 100 years old, but, I'm getting up there. But Gerald taught me a lot about people and expectations on the job. And I learned a lot from Edward as far as the skilled trade, but he was from New York, and again, he's no longer with us, but he told stories of he knew people that would work in a pipe yard and never welded, just would walk around with a wrench all day,
right,
and still get paid.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was, so you had two sides of it. You got one group of guys that were, hey, I just got to get on the job site, and didn't really want to work, and they play cards and that kind of stuff. And then Gerald was more focused on career-oriented and working. Mm-hmm. And me and him worked together. My first job that I got in welding was Marshall & Williams, which was a local company here that built textile machinery for China at the time and overseas. And it was a Rhode Island company, I believe. And what's wild is it's down by the downtown airport, but now it's no longer that. I think they've made stores out of it, maybe a restaurant. But I worked there, and I think about them a lot. Those people had been there since the 60s, most of them, and they were a different group of characters. So you know how that goes. What I tell my young kids that come in, you have no idea how lucky you are to work with these people, because when I first started, I worked with a rough group of people that wasn't going to show you anything. Mm-hmm. And those people, a lot of them probably had done some jail time.
Well,
and you'll have that.
You
right?
will have that.
In manufacturing, right?
Yes.
A lot of that's changed, but again, they had been there since the 60s, and not to get caught up in that. Young people can get caught up in working construction and that kind of stuff, working with, there's two groups. You got the group that's going to come in and work every day, and then you got the group that's there for a paycheck, right?
That's correct, yeah. You mentioned you weren't a pipe welder, you were a TIG welder?
More just sheet metal.
Yep.
So I did MIG welding and TIG welding is how I started.
Well, if you talk to many folks in the industry, a good TIG welder isn't necessarily a really good pipe welder.
Correct.
And
I was not.
Yeah. But a good pipe welder isn't always a good TIG welder.
Yep. They call us 10 beaters.
Well, there's definitely a different skill set there.
Yes.
Not saying that you can't do both, but it's a craft, right? Welding and machining too. Listen, I'm a welder. I don't have I could never do the math to be a machinist. Mm-hmm. Never. You know what I mean? So that's a whole nother craftsmanship skill set in itself that it amazes me how we can take, something like that and turn it into that. Whereas welding is, I look at it as, well, we're not as, I personally feel like we're not as skilled as a good machinist that can do manual machining, right?
Right.
Those guys, those older guys,
Yeah.
like you're talking about,
Yeah.
man, that is a talent in itself.
Yes.
Yeah. But how about yourself?
So I started out at a massive company. I came back, I dropped out of college, came home and just kind of got the first job I could get. One of my buddy's dads worked at a place in Simpsonville and just a huge facility. So went to work there, and they had this apprenticeship program that you could apply for, and they picked 6 kids to do it every 2 years. And I ended up getting into the apprenticeship program. They put you through Greenville Tech and started getting into machining and everything. And kind of just like Travis said, I had a teacher named William Scott who I was still kind of going down the path of, like, I didn't really care. I wasn't paying attention, not going into work like I should, just really wasn't doing a great job at it. And he just kind of pulled me aside and he's like, listen, you've got a niche for this. I mean, you seem like you're grasping it without even trying. If you would just give like a little bit of effort, you would be surprised. And after that, I really started to pay attention and dive into it, and I just fell in love with manufacturing, especially machining. Stayed there for a while and went to a smaller shop. Really wanted to get into not just production running, but running something different every single day. And we were doing work for a company in South Carolina that kind of up and down work with them, but when it's up, it's up. It's up.
Yeah.
And more complicated parts, massive stuff, tight tolerances, and walked into the shop one day and they said, hey, we're shutting the doors. Everybody go home. So I kind of frantically started looking for a job and got a job at a place in Anderson, probably 20 or 30 minutes from my house. And it was just an awful work environment. The guys there, the owner, it's just one of those places where it was thumb on head type thing. It was, his way or the highway. And I was driving home every single day, in an awful mood. I'd get home, my wife would, see it in me that I just didn't like where I was at. And half a mile to a mile down the road, I see a bay door open on the side of 17, and they're moving a CNC machine in, and it was the Herco in the middle building over there. And it was the first CNC machine got. Called up there, and I actually thought that it was another machine shop that we shared the building with, and interviewed, met Travis. He was up there bending the cages for the hooks, and just kind of talked to Matt, talked to Travis, and after I think like 5 interviews, finally, Matt said, yeah, we'll give you an opportunity, and been there ever since.
So were you one of the original employees?
Yeah, so when Matt started, he started in his garage, and we were working together at another company, and we would go over there and work at night together. And then he wanted to know if I knew of a building for sale, and there was one close to where I was currently working that they owned, and he ended up buying that building.
Okay.
And now we have 3 locations. One we kind of moving out of because we're growing into the last one we bought was how many square feet, Shane?
60,000 square foot, and then we've got a 10,000 square foot expansion that we're waiting to add on.
You'll notice that Shane's very good at sales because I can ask him questions about square footage and stuff, and he knows it.
How many years ago was this started?
Let's see, 2016.
2015, Matt started it.
And you have multiple locations.
Multiple
And a
locations.
60,000 square foot manufacturing facility.
Yes,
That's the main location.
The main.
Yeah, Matt started in 2015 out of his garage with Travis helping, and then Travis came on full time in November of 2017.
Okay.
Shane, same month.
Yeah,
right?
well, December of 2017, I came on, so shortly after, and I mean, it was just us for the first 6 months or so, and then we got 1 or 2 people hired on that one had done machining before, one had never really been involved in it, and then added a welder here and there, but it just started growing super fast. I mean, by the end of 2018, I think we had around 12 employees. And then, 2019, doubled in size again. 2020 doubled in size again. So I mean, we were almost doubling every single year.
All right, so I want to come back to that, but let's back up just a hair.
Yeah.
Walk me through. You know, I know Matt's not here, so but if you can speak on his behalf, walk me through the founding of Kelly Engineering. I'm sure if you work together, you kind of are in on that.
So we worked together. The place that we worked at made piping handling equipment.
Okay.
And that was 2014. If you remember, based on where they were selling new automation for that, the company we worked for, 2014, if I remember correctly, the price of oil went down. And I think the thing was a lot of the products that they had sold, if the price of a barrel of oil was below $103 or something, they didn't want to expand, right? And I think in 2014, the price of oil went down, so they got a bunch of canceled orders. And I told Matt, I said, the place that I had come from before we worked together was trying to get me back. They did other stuff. And he said, well, I'm going to start my own business. I left. He stayed there, and he got laid off. And this is one thing I will say about Matt. At the time, Matt's he's younger than me. At the time, Matt was, I'm trying to think of his title, but I believe he was managing the whole operation.
Yeah, I think he was engineering manager or GM.
And GM for the whole place. And they had at one time, I think then, about 50 employees. And that's a lot for a young man to handle. And I always respected him. I mean, he always made good decisions when I dealt with him, being that young. So that's why he said, I'm going to start my own business. I still want you to help me out. He got laid off. He had to make it happen. And he did. I mean, he started at his garage, and he will tell it's a different story when you got to make a living, right? So he was selling, knocking on doors, not taking no for an answer, and he would get small jobs. I would come in, fab them. We had another guy that he knew that started his own business now. I don't even know what he's doing, but he was helping us with machining. And that's just how it started. And, the pay wasn't great, but it was extra money for me.
Right.
And so that's just how it started. And then the next thing I know, he called me up and said, he's got to buy a building, a building. And that's where we ended up in the building.
And I mean, we both took pay cuts coming there just because, you know, we wanted something different. We wanted an opportunity to build something. And, in the beginning, I mean, Matt was bringing a single order out, putting it on the table for us. We would knock it out, and then he would put another one out there. We were just doing it one at a time. Now we're processing 100 orders a week, sometimes more. Wow. So, just completely different than when we first started. And it was just, kind of growing pains, figuring everything out. We try it for a little while, then we'd switch it up.
At the time, I was doing manual machining.
Yeah.
And Shane, we had the one CNC, so he was doing the one CNC. So we were over there. I mean,
we were back and forth, and the first, I guess, major, not contract, but the major opportunity we had at a contract, we actually did it completely on a manual machine, except for maybe two pieces of it, and people still see it, and they're like, "There's no way that y'all did all this on a manual machine." I'm like, we absolutely did.
Yeah, that's cool.
We did.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah. Wow. So you mentioned in 2018 you had 12 people. 2019 you doubled. In 2019 you doubled. In 20 you doubled.
Yes.
So what was the catalyst of that growth?
I would say it was the first 2 years we couldn't keep up. We were late. We had to get work done. And then a lot of people don't talk about this, but COVID hit.
Yeah.
And we really got busy.
Yes.
A lot of people didn't get busy, but as a small business, because I guess we were smaller and we didn't have to follow all the rules, but we got slammed.
Well, and on top of that, we, like Travis said earlier, we tried not to say no to anything. So, you had a lot of shops around us who had been in business for a long time, and they're like, we're only going to do this type of work, or we're only going to take these size orders, where we're sitting here going, no, we'll take it. I mean, you know, send it over. We'll at least take a look at it. If we can do it, we'll do it. If not, you know, we'll figure something else out. And being diverse in the customers that we had is what allowed us to grow as well, because, you know, like Travis said, when COVID happened, well, aerospace work plummeted. I mean, nobody was doing it, but we were doing work for automation companies and medical companies as well. So we ended up doing 11 vaccination lines in 2019, 2020.
What do you mean by that?
We did, so the actual lines that were making these vaccines, we were doing the manufacturing of them, you know, the stainless steel conveyors and all of the stuff that would fill everything up. We would actually do those. So we had an automation company come to us, and another one was, you know, like the IV bags.
Yep.
That was a massive job for us. It was during COVID as well. So, you know, being diverse is what has helped us grow.
Were those current customers or were those new customers?
Those were current customers.
They just happened to be in that line of business.
Yep. They needed something in a hurry. They didn't want to wait, you know, 20-something weeks to get it from somebody else. And the vendors that they were previously using were like, you know, we only do this type of work. Again, we would do anything. And I think the other thing that's helped us is, you know, you asked us, is it more fabrication or is it more machining? It's 50-50. You know, we're strong on both sides of it. You know, now we've got a total of 30 CNC machines.
Wow.
And we've got 16 weld areas or stations, if you will, 2 fiber lasers, 3 press brakes. So it's not just, you know, like most shops where if they've got 30 CNC machines, they've got like 2 guys there that can weld, and they outsource all their laser stuff. No, we do all of that in-house.
That's
so
impressive.
That's the other thing. And we looked at it like anything that became a problem for us externally, we wanted to find a way to bring it in-house. That's why we got the lasers. That's why we got the press brakes. You know, we try to make sure that we can control as much as we can when it comes to our delivery schedules.
Yeah, we're the same way. You can only control what you have in your possession.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And building relationships with vendors as well is the other thing we found out you have to do, because that gives you more control over it. I mean, Travis talks to our vendors probably more than more than anybody.
Yeah, you're only as good as your supplies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the world realized that. Talking about COVID,
Yep.
Yeah.
you know how fragile your supply chain is.
Yep.
That's why folks that are good at what you do, you get busy when times are tough, because they know they can count on you. Yeah.
What people don't realize, though, is like the states that shut down, California, we got one job from there, and we kept it the whole time. Where we can be competitive with these people is on shipping.
Yes.
Like because they were building some of those components in China. It's the shipping that the United States is competitive on. Yes, China can get low, but during COVID and even now, shipping is so expensive.
So freight rates are astronomical right now.
Yeah.
You know, we're an importer. We do a lot of domestic hardware, but we do some importing as well. Importing like unistrut, threaded rod, commodity type items. Well, the cost of a container has tripled in the last few years, and people don't understand that that's directly impacting you. You know, when you go to the shelf to buy it.
And we're seeing a change in it, because we're doing 2 projects right now that are BABA projects, which is the Buy America, Build America Act. And that's been huge for us, because that's, you know, one of them is our biggest customer so far this year. The other one, I imagine next year, is going to be top 3, top 4 probably. So we're absolutely seeing.
Are those infrastructure type jobs?
One of them is we build cable assemblies for submersible pumps.
Okay.
The other one is for transit industry, so passenger trains.
Yep. I think that's going to become a thing here.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
really do.
And that's for a long time been that industry's always been a top 3 for us, the transit industry. So we're already in that game, which I think is just making me look forward more to 5-10 years down the road what we're going to be able to do.
What sets you guys' processes apart? Because I'm just going to say this: and you mentioned it too. A lot of folks, a lot of shops are either going to be fabricating or machining or not both. But the fact that you have been able to bring both in house and you have the equipment that we've spoken about says that you guys have done an excellent job at capitalizing on your profitability, on your customer base. Your processes have to be, just to have the aerospace certification, your processes have got to be unique. What's setting you guys apart?
I would say when we first started, I'm just going to go back to the people thing. We all ask everybody to wear multiple hats. And we have, for the most part, we've never had, that's not my job. That's not like me and Shane, we talked about this morning. We don't want to put work into something that a customer asks us to do paperwork-wise if they're not going to help us on their end of it. So we're busy. Everybody's busy. But what sets us apart is the people. It's just getting those people. And I'm going to explain this to people. Post-COVID and before COVID, it's just COVID made it happen. Realize it's not about the money. It's about satisfaction when you leave that place every day that you're part of something special. You're not taken advantage of. You're not taken for granted. And you can do your job.
How do you build that into your business?
So for me, I look at, and I thought about this morning, the people in our industry are artists. They're craftsmen, right? And you have to think about it. Do you want to, there is somebody else that can paint the Mona Lisa to make it look just like it, right? But it's not the same. So if you replace somebody, you might get the same, that person can machine just like the person before, but there's going to be a little something different.
Right.
And people take that for granted. A lot of big companies put people in the wrong places, and they take that for granted that we can replace everybody, that anybody's replaceable. But you got to go back to your core values.
That's a very good point. I think a lot of, especially, small businesses, we start out with this idea. And then I think at some point in time, a lot of us lose that initial idea of who we wanted to be, especially when we start seeing some success. You see that like with professional athletes all the time, They go from the college to the pro level, and they just completely lose sight of who they wanted to be, right? Same thing with business. It's not losing sight of where you come from, remembering how easy it is to go back to that point, because as well as I do, we could all lose every customer we got very easily. And someone's always out to get you.
Yes.
Yes.
Someone is always out to get you. Yep.
I share a quote every Monday in the weekly email. This week was Deion Sanders. And I'm going to paraphrase his quote a little bit because I don't have it exactly memorized. But he talked about when you're dreaming as a kid, money and what you want to do, you can dream about the diamond rings, the nice cars. Don't forget to dream about the work, right? So I want to share that. Like, people want things. We become the biggest house, nicest car. Don't forget to dream about the work that goes in it, right? And, education is not just what somebody, you got to read it yourself. What somebody teaches you at school, like for me, I think my continued education has been more valuable. Again, I did learn the basics at school, but just watching YouTube, learning your trade, that's a different kind of education. Do you not agree, Shane?
Absolutely. Me and Travis have seen each other videos, podcasts, all kind of stuff just that we find interesting,
a lot of it has to do with work, too.
Yeah. And it's funny. We talk about it like all the time. There's a guy that, he shares his blog with us all the time, Ronald Graves. Yeah. And, he'll send the blog to Travis, and Travis will forward it out, and I get them as well. And, Travis will say it's almost like he's wiretapped our office, because every time he sends a blog, it's got to do with something that we're going through right now. I remember the biggest was the hats. Yeah. The black hat, red hat, all of that. And we were going through, like, when is the time to talk about certain things? And Ronald sent a blog about, like, you need to have this hat on when you're talking about this. And it was just it's crazy sometimes. So we send that to each other all the time. It is always about learning. I mean, you can't ever sit there and think that you know everything. You've got to learn something every single day.
I get excited about the hats. So just to go into detail about the hats.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, explain that, please.
So,
Folks at home, listen up. I've got to take a second to tell you about my good friends at Kelly Engineering. Yes, they are the premier design, engineer, manufacturing company in the Southeast. And yes, they're one of the fastest growing manufacturers in the Southeast. And yes, they do excellent work. And yes, they have excellent customer service. Not only are they a CNC, machining, metal fabrication, custom design, custom engineering company, but they're good people, serving a variety of industries from aerospace, automotive to ceramics, injection molding, medical packaging, tires, and general manufacturing. Listen, if you need something made, you need it made well, and you need good service behind it, call my friends at Kelly Engineering. They'll take good care of you.
in the office, I need to understand what they're coming at me with. Like, is this a black hat? And like a black hat is, you need to be paying attention. This is crucial to our relationship and me working here. That's a black hat. I just need to know when you walk in. A yellow hat, you like to hear me say yellow, though. I'm Southern. A yellow hat is, I'm just venting. I don't want you to do anything about it. I'm just venting. That's a yellow hat. And then I can understand what needs to be done. Black hat, I need your full attention. I need you to understand I need some help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that just helps me understand what I need to do, right?
And a lot of that I bring back to like me and Travis's relationship because, you know, Travis has his yellow hat on with me
Yes.
80% of the
Remember
time. I would
this,
say.
everybody. Always vent up or sideways. You can never vent down
Right.
in management. So,
And it's one of those things where, you know, I know when he's got his yellow hat on, but I also know, you know, when he's got his black hat on. And I think if you've got people there where they don't understand when those conversations are had or, you know, what kind of conversation it's going to be, just say, hey, this is going to be a black hat conversation. And it worked great for us. Like, it changed a lot of stuff being able to say, like, look, this is going to be a black hat conversation because we understood, okay, if we hear that, it's time to lock in. We've got to listen to exactly what this person has to say.
That's a unique way of looking at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of it being you know, I think that preps you to open your mind
Right.
for what this person's fixing to tell me.
Yes.
And it also lets
Yeah.
me get ready for it.
Exactly.
That's the thing. I mean, because again, we're wearing multiple hats.
Right. Yeah.
So I might be writing an email. Somebody walks in, and a yellow hat conversation, I might not have to be as involved.
Right.
But, hey, man, this is black hat. Come on, look at
Right.
me, help me.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know I've been guilty of this. Someone to come in with an issue or whatever it is, and I may not like their tone. You know, when they walk in the door, you know, employee wise, right? Or my kids, right? Instead of listen to what they got to say, I'm immediately on the defense. Like,
Yep.
whoa, wait a minute now. You know?
that's yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It just, and again, there's two more hats, but I could share with. I don't remember
We
those.
rarely use
We
those, the
rarely
blue and the
use those
red.
hats, but we just use the black and the yellow.
Black and the yellow.
Black and yellow.
That's
yeah.
that's the biggest ones. The red and the blue, I can't remember off the top of my head what they were for.
And I think it's good for kids too, because yellow means I don't want you to do nothing about it, Daddy, but
just listen.
so and so punched me in the stomach.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you don't
Yeah.
ever know.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going back to my kids, actually, to be honest with you, because I had an experience yesterday.
Yep.
I just went off
Yep.
just because I didn't like the tone. But all he was trying to do was tell me about something. You know
Right.
what I mean? So, yeah, I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah,
that's insightful. Yeah.
A lot of the things that we learn from like Ronald or other blogs, it just helps you understand that what you're doing is right. Sometimes we do need that because I don't have anybody a lot of times to vent to or just reading and continuous education on those kind of management classes and those kind of things, even if you do it yourself, helps you understand that you are doing the correct thing.
And it also makes you feel like you're not the only company or the only person who's having those same issues, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody's writing a blog about it, it's because they've dealt with those issues, or, you know, they hear about those issues at other places. So
Right.
it also makes you feel like, okay, we can actually get through this because other people have had to deal with it before.
How has technology played a role in y'all's growth, or
I'll take this one, Travis.
You go ahead.
yeah, or has
we
it caused
go.
some challenges for you?
I mean, it's, you know, we've got core values, and, you know, one of the things that we try to stick to is that we want to be innovators. We want to make sure we're staying with the times, whatever that may be. If it's education or classes, you know, one of the things is not even just technology, but, you know, innovating the way that you deal with people. That was one of the reasons that we brought Ronald Graves in, is, you know, he taught a leadership class with management and also the first team about how to go about dealing with, you know, altercations or issues that you might have, or when you need to speak to somebody. So I think that's also part of it. But as far as, you know, technology, we try to make sure that we're staying up on our ERP system. That's a big thing. The type of equipment that we have, you know, we don't want somebody to walk into the shop and everything is just machines from, you know, the 70s or 80s. You know, we obviously can't buy a new machine every single year, but there's also stuff that you can add on to those machines or add on to those welders, press brakes, you know.
Right.
One of the good examples I would get would be our lasers that we
Yes.
Oh, I actually had wrote down. I was going to
Okay.
ask you about lasers.
So, technology with the laser, and a lot of people don't believe this, but so when I first started, the first company I worked at had a CO2 laser, and that stayed for a long time. Going to fiber has been a big change, and we bought the first laser we bought. We didn't know. We thought we had to budget to buy, and I know people don't like this, but it was a Chinese-made laser, and we thought that it was probably going to be a joke. But I'm here to tell you that it's killing it. I mean, we've had that thing for 3 years, and it's a 4 kilowatt, and I will talk about their service. I mean, I hate to say it, but based on for a quarter of the price, and again, their warranty work has been good, and we bought a second one. We even put a tube laser on the second one.
Wow.
It is, and we talk about technology changing. That's a big deal because at the time, to buy one from a name brand like a Mata, it's for us being a small company is almost unaffordable.
Way unaffordable.
Way
Was there some hesitancy in buying that first laser?
There
Just
was.
because,
Absolutely.
if for the audience that may or may not know, a fiber laser is not an inexpensive piece of equipment to purchase.
No.
Correct.
What is the? I'm gonna put myself in your shoes for a second. I'm looking at upgrading computer systems, and it's a major financial cost.
Yes.
So there's some hesitancy there. Is this worth it? Is this going to cause me more problems? You know, all the unknowns. So what is it like going to purchase a very expensive piece of equipment like that, not knowing if you're really going to be able to keep it running or not?
I think the big thing is you more so have to look at it like an investment. I mean, that's what I would say.
Well, with this machine, again, the first one we bought during COVID, we didn't even know if it really went through when we bought it because, again, the exchange of money was a little weird.
Right.
And then they give us a ship to look at. We didn't know. And there's horror stories about people buying cars, and then they open the container, and it's like a miniature car instead of the real thing.
Yep.
But this was the real deal. They sent a guy that spoke no English to help us assemble it, right, during COVID because they didn't have a lot of people that could come in the country. He had a little jumpsuit that was cool that had his company colors on, and we got to know him pretty good, and he did a great – I mean, it's been great. I mean –
And Travis had to communicate with him
Through
over
my
a
phone.
phone. He would type into Google Translate and play it for the guy.
And he'd go,
and
"Oh."
then the guy would go, okay. And then he would,
Got it.
he would play it back.
He knew lunch because, again, part of the deal is that we would provide lunch for him. So he was it's funny coming from he would eat a ton of food, but he would not drink a soda because they teach him over there that soda helps you eat more. And I didn't understand that, but it makes you eat more. And he just wouldn't eat that, but he would eat a whole pizza.
What are some What are some challenges that you guys face on a day to day? Not, I don't mean that in a negative way against the business, just in general. Whether it be working with people or your customers or jobs, or what are some challenges that we face and you have to overcome?
Cash flow.
Oh,
Cash flow's-
yeah.
cash
Cash
flow's a big
flow.
one.
Preach it, brother. Preach it.
Cash flow. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, because that controls everything.
It does.
And we're growing, and it's just keeping up. We have our hands in so many different things. We do cable assemblies, we do automation assemblies and runoffs, we do programming for those, fabrication, machining, and you got to keep the cash flowing to be on time. And it's difficult.
And I think, communication between all those departments would probably be the other thing. I mean, we've gotten better and better at it, but that would still be another challenge that we face daily because, for an automation project to, get put together, get programmed, get out the door, you've got to deal with sales, you've got to deal with purchasing, you've got to deal with machining, fab, and then assembly, and then programming, and then runoff. So that's a lot of stuff that you have to get in line and work your way through before that can actually get sent out to the customer. So making sure that everyone knows what items need to be purchased or when material needs to be ordered or who's going to be doing the assembly, that it takes a lot of communication to make that happen when you've got that many departments working on one thing.
Mm-hmm. Do y'all have like a standard operating procedure that you work through on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's hard about it now is I say it's like a slide. Once the job starts down the slide, it's hard to stop if something is missed. So the front end is very important make sure we got all the purchase items, make sure the BOM is correct, make sure we got the correct materials. Because as it starts down that slide, if we're missing something, it can be devastating.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What are there any particular projects that just stand out that you're like, man, I can't believe we did that or pulled that off? Or
I mean, just the fact we're doing NASA, I would say, is
Okay.
one of the wildest
Yeah.
ones.
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean,
That's cool.
so we've been doing automation, machining, and fab. We had never really done a ton of electrical work. It had just been like some panels on automation projects, and we got an opportunity to do a large NASA project for their Mark II launch tower. And it was 1,100 cable assemblies, I think. And when I say cable assemblies,
I was supposed to ask, what is a cable assembly?
It's not like
y'all?
what you're thinking. It's
Okay.
not just stripping wire and you're done. I mean, it has, machined pieces on the end, and there's torque specs, and you have to cable test every single wire, and then you have to cable test the assembly, both ends for continuity and all that. I mean,
There's 100 wires that plug in to a end that's machined, and that's the cover, and then it has to be a clear urethane poured around it. And that's another. I mean, it's just holding that. So we had to design a fixture that would hold the cable up in the air to put the end on, and then we machine the molds that go around that cable, and then we actually pour the urethane there, and it has to be clear. I mean, there's a bunch of specs.
no bubbles.
No
and
bubbles, specs.
The paperwork, I mean, as you can imagine, just to ship is, I mean, we have a guy who pretty much that's what he does.
So all he does is paperwork.
He does the paperwork for the NASA project. But that also, our other big project that we're doing, that NASA project allowed us to do it. So we were quoting a multi-million-dollar machining job for a customer, and we were talking about investing, 1.3, I think is where we ended, $1 million in machinery to get this job. And it just started to make less and less sense for us to do it. Well, because of that NASA project, when I was on the phone call with the customer, we had a good relationship, and he's got his yellow hat on, as I say, and was just venting and was talking about, I'm having to find somebody to build these electrical assemblies. And I'm like, well, can we take a look at that? And now that is a, year after year contract with them for, well over $1 million that we're doing with them just because of that NASA project that we're doing. So that NASA project, as big of a headache as it has been so far, has helped us grow the business as well.
Was that project an outreach that you initiated, or did they contact you all?
So this one was our CEO and one of the electrical engineers worked together to quote the job for the customer.
I guess I meant the initial sales
Oh,
on that. Like, did is that something that you all went out and said, "Hey, we want to work with NASA"? Did y'all set out to target NASA, or did they come
No.
to you?
We just quoted. I mean, it was just a deal. I think it was more of a maybe we looked to get it. It was like, hey, I think we would be good at this. Let's quote for this company.
yeah, because it was quoting for a company that does work for a ton of different people. They're almost like a massive contractor, and they were the ones who made that initial, setup with this project.
I got you. I was just thinking in my mind, my sales guy head. I don't know how I'd tackle going about working with NASA,
But
It
I mean,
has not
or trying
been
to
easy.
get in the door at
Yeah,
NASA.
It has not been easy.
It can't
no.
be. Yeah.
But other projects, I mean, like I said, we just do so many different things. I mean, we've made toilets for trains. We've made breaching tools to knock doors down for the SWAT team. Just so many. The cargo hooks is another one.
Some of the train stuff can get interesting. I
Yes.
mean, there's some parts that went inside the flush valves that we do that were originally made out of copper and was deteriorating on some of these, I guess, high-speed trains. And Matt designed it out of stainless. And just when you see one of these put together,
It looks like an art
it's
piece.
just
The
crazy.
tolerances on it, you can imagine, 5/8 and 3/4 diameter, was it 062 wall, I think. Bent tube by hand, bunch of different angles with pieces welded on to the end, with, nipple adapters and couplings. And they want you to hold 10 thou overall height. It's the tolerances on it are just
Speaking
wild.
of tolerances, so having your hands in so many different areas, I'm assuming y'all have got a quality control manager.
That's me, right?
That's you. Okay, all right.
On top
so
of everything.
So how are you maintaining quality assurance, being involved in so many different aspects?
So it's work instructions. So we have work instructions
Okay,
that we
yep.
have to build off based on how many different customers we have, Shane?
This year?
Yeah.
This year we've invoiced 75 already. Last year we invoiced 104.
So you can imagine 75 different work instructions you got to hold to. But what we try to do is just go to the highest level, and then we exceed expectations. That's one reason, right? To exceed expectations on quality. The second thing is our ERP system, and based on our processes, everybody is in charge of their own quality, right? Everybody has their own stamp. So each process is stamped off on. You're putting your name on that. We keep that for indefinitely. They get scanned in our ERP system. So everybody's responsible for quality, and you'd be surprised. It really does well. I mean, we do have people that can go over. That's what I mean about wearing different hats. And to be profitable in what we do, you really have to have that. And that's where we talk about people.
And we've tried to have, like a person that's the quality manager, and, they're the ones that are checking all the parts, and it kind of comes down to them. But by the time it makes it to them, it's too late. So that's why we try to make sure, like, your quality's got to happen on the floor. Like, having somebody in charge of it, you've got to have that as well. But if your guys aren't checking stuff on the floor at the machine through the entire process, it's going to be too late by the time you catch it in your QC lab.
Right.
Quality now is about paperwork, though.
Yes.
Just certificate. I mean, just that alone is a lot. You got to have your material cert. You got to have COCs for outsourcing anything like plating. They have to be certain ones. We're dealing with NAVCAB. Had to be NAVCAB, correct?
NADCAP.
NADCAB. I keep getting Southern, but that's a European spec, right?
No, I think that's a U.S.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
We can look at it, but like that
It
was
could be
hard.
European.
That was hard. I think it
Yes,
was.
that has been tough to find, and even when we found vendors that are NADCAP certified, they're only certified in certain processes. So it's definitely been tough.
That is another whole side of the quality.
Yes.
Other than making sure the part is correct.
Yes.
Is the paperwork side. So we always say when you're looking for somebody, are their paperwork quality or are they checking parts quality?
Yes.
Two different kinds.
Because there's some that their quality is, they don't have a ton of paperwork, their tolerances are super tight, and if it's out a tenth, it's still wrong. There's no like, we'll take this, it's okay. But then you've got other ones where the tolerances are wider, but they've got a ton more paperwork for you to do.
And a lot of especially government work, you may send the perfect parts, but if the paperwork's one thing is off on that paperwork, it's rejected.
Yep.
And then you miss your delivery day because paperwork.
Yep.
Packaging and marking parts is the same way. If you didn't use the right paint spec for marking a part, and the packaging isn't marked up correctly,
Stickers aren't right.
Stickers aren't right. It's rejected.
Yeah. You're smiling, but I have similar stories to that too.
We dealt with the stickers this week,
Stickers.
so it was
Okay. That's recent.
Fresh in his mind.
Fresh
is-
stickers.
So I'll tell you a funny little story. We have a tier 1 supplier for Daimler Freightliner, who had to have any assembly hardware we sent them had to be labeled and their part numbers, and and we had this guy. Man, if the sticker was crooked, he's gonna call, right? If there's a period that someone put in there in the wrong spot, he's gonna call, right? And it just got to be just where it was like, oh, Mike's gonna call about this delivery today, whatever. It's funny is Mike works here now, and he oversees our warehouse, And when I was looking for someone, I was thinking, who do I know who is attentive to everything? I was like, that guy.
Got the guy.
That's great.
Yeah, so things tend to circle back around in this industry.
Yes.
And that's kind of a unique thing about the manufacturing, industrial, and the construction world is a guy may be here today and over there tomorrow, but he tends to stay in this circle for his entire career.
Yeah, I mean, manufacturing is a small world.
We say
talk
that.
about it all the time.
The Greenville area, I'll say, is the biggest, smallest town you'll ever work in.
Right.
So and I'd say that to my young people. If you do a bad job here,
Ooh.
people will remember you, and it might be, I've seen it 20 years later, just a name on something, and that person's whole life has changed in 20 years. He's married, got kids, and they'll just go, I remember this happened.
Yeah. So you guys design and build custom automation equipment, correct?
Yes.
The engineering, everything's done in-house.
Yes.
Right. So how does that, when someone comes to you with an idea, how does that play out through your company as far as from design to submittals to approvals to you guys making the process?
So it's different every time. We have automation projects where a customer comes to us and they have, no rough scope of work. They really don't have a ton of information for us. It's just kind of, I kind of say it's like that paper napkin idea. And we have to work through them to come up with a scope of work, what exactly they're going to want to do, how quickly they need it done. That's the first thing that you have to work out is you have to get all the information. We also have companies like we're dealing with one now where they have a system that they made that was similar or was made overseas at some point, and they've got a rough design sketch or maybe a rough CAD model even, and that'll give you a little bit more to go on. But figuring out that scope of work is the first thing. From there, it's passed over to our engineering team that they actually go in and they're doing weekly or monthly meetings with the customer to talk about the design every single week so that changes can, small little changes can be made as we go. And then after that, it's a final design review where the customer signs off, any final changes that they want to make. They're pretty much giving us the go-ahead that they are good with our design as long as it works like we say it will.
Okay. Is there support that Kelly provides on a custom engineered product?
In what way? What do you mean?
Meaning, like if Kelly creates the design, right, and we build it and we install it, do you guys offer support for your product that you designed?
Yes, we do.
Right. So, do you guys ever have to send people out to like wherever in the world to look at something?
We do, but part of and there's two things that's important. Is one, and we've known local companies that have went out of business because they can't hit the scope. And what I mean about the scope is there's like an automation says, I got part of the scope is you got to get 400 of these packaged in 2 minutes. If it's a minute 58, they don't have to pay.
Wow.
Right, like I mean, if it's over, like if it's
Right,
2
it's
minutes,
right.
I'm
Right.
sorry, to 2:01,
Yeah.
they're not paying.
In other words, if you build
Yeah.
a machine and the customer says, "Hey, I need this to do this
Yes.
in X
and
amount
you
of
don't
time,"
hit that,
they're off the hook.
they're not okay with, like again, if 2 minutes is a goal and you're 2:03,
Right.
you didn't hit the scope.
So you got to make sure. That's why I say gathering
Wow.
all
So
that information. You got
that
to hit it.
is, and we know a local company that I mean they're just not going to pay.
Yeah.
Right.
So you got to be careful with your customer too. A lot of people will work with you, but the scope is important.
You got to
And-
be
Yeah.
realistic.
And the next thing is there is what we call a runoff and then fat of a job, and that's towards the end. So you do a runoff, and then the fat part of it. That's where everything is paid off, and then there's a warranty with the job too.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
The warranty most of the time is 1 year.
Okay.
But then, like I said, there'll be most of the time the customer asks, do we own the drawings or you own the drawings? And it goes back and forth. Sometimes we own the drawings, but most of the time we design something well enough that as far as replacing any part that we actually built is a rarity. It would be more like bearings, but the bearings are easy stuff that you could get from Amazon.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of what I was asking was, do you guys have a service side of your business where you're supporting, going in doing PMs or whatever it may be?
No, we hadn't had anybody where we've had to go in and do PMs or anything. We've had customers that reach out to us to, purchase spare parts or replace parts. Not a ton, but it does happen every once in a while. But a lot of times it's just, that's normal wear and tear on the machine. If it's, 3 years later, I mean, you've got to buy that part.
Right.
But most of the stuff we build, they do have a local maintenance guy that
Yeah.
wants to be there for runoff. We do have one customer that we built a couple machines for. Their top maintenance guy, and what I mean about maintenance has changed. I mean, this guy's he's a programmer. He understands electrical, and that's the main part. He just wants to understand that. And most of the time, they're responsible, and they do a good job. They might call and ask a question, but they're taking over.
It just seems like a good segue of for y'all's business.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking out loud was, if you're manufacturing something from scratch, being able to go in and do the maintenance on those may be a good increase in revenue
Yeah.
that you otherwise wouldn't have.
The biggest thing for that is just, trying to find the right person for that because
that's a tough part.
everybody that we have right now, I mean, when they finish a project, they're rolling right into the next one.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then someone willing to be on the road.
Yep.
That's a tough job.
Yeah, I mean, we've got projects that are in Mexico. We've got them in Utah, Pennsylvania. I mean, we've got them all over the place. So if that was the case, yeah, that person would be on the road a good bit.
Timelines are stressful.
Yes, very
Because
stressful.
a lot of customers can have a stipulation where if you don't hit this timeline, there's a penalty clause, and that can get stressful.
I guarantee it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I used to have a beautiful head of black hair. Now it's all gray.
It was peppered when
It was
I met
peppered
you,
when
but
you met me. Yeah.
What role is automation playing in y'all's processes? Obviously, I know you've got CNC machines and fibers, lasers, and do you foresee automation continuing to be a major player
yeah,
in y'all's business?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where when Matt started it, I mean, he wanted to do automation work. That was, what he loved. That's what he, found inspiration from. But he wanted to make sure that manufacturing could support itself when those automation projects, weren't being done or if there was a downtime. So I definitely think that it's going to be something that we're going to grow with, and it elevates the shop floor as well. It helps us work with other customers because we almost have a internal customer, if you will. So it kind of helps us work with our external ones.
I understand. What about automation inside your shop? As far as like for example, like we're one of the only cobot dealer and installers on the East Coast, and we're seeing a lot of uptick on cobot welding, especially being able to. We do the service on that as well. But do you guys see the AI and the robots and all that taking over the manufacturing space like everyone says.
I look at it different. I think AI is going to change
Yeah.
everything.
Everything.
Everything from the way our kids are educated all the way up through manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
What we do, I think it's going to be very hard for a robot to do what we do, and that's going to be quantities. So, like press brake, you could put a cobot on a press brake, and you could, if it was 30,000 parts, if you had a contract for that, that's fine. But we don't do 30,000. I mean, 4,000. It's hard to put the time. I mean, maybe time will change, and you can get that robot set up to do that one part 3,000, but then changing parts. Like automotive, I could see cobots and that kind of stuff. Lasers are automatic now. They have change and unload. Now, ours doesn't have that, but we don't do enough. That's the problem with lasers. It's not how fast they cut now. It's how fast you can get them unloaded.
Yep.
I never thought I would see that, but they rock and roll now.
They're extremely fast.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to 2050.
Okay.
When you envision Kelly Engineering, what's the shop look like?
Well, we've all missed Travis for a while.
Yeah, I'm in a urn up on
On the shelf.
on the shelf, and it is.
Do I
and
get
and
half
you
of
rub
you
it.
and Matt gets
well,
half
you,
of you? How's
well,
that?
you rub it like you do Howard's Rock before you start a big project.
He's haunting you.
Right.
He's
Yeah,
like, you
I'm
better
hard.
do it right.
You better rub it. You better
Yeah.
rub him, or he's gonna haunt.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think the biggest thing about, looking that far down the road is, we've talked before. I mean, in 2017, 2018, even 2019, we didn't envision, where we're at now. I mean, we knew that it could be big and that we could grow fast, but we didn't know where we were going or what we were heading towards. So, I mean, looking that far ahead, that's a tough question for me.
Well, let's say you have a crystal ball.
Okay.
And you can, what are you most excited about for the future at work?
I would say, in all honesty, I mean, the innovation, seeing kind of how we, use that to help our facility grow and add on to the machining and the fab side. I mean, more not so automated processes, but stuff that kind of helps us cycle through stuff quicker.
Without inflation, I would like to be a $100 million company and 250 employees, and we would be known in the Southeast as a contract automation manufacturer.
That's awesome.
That's what I would like to
I mean,
see.
our biggest goal has always been, the premier manufacturer of the Southeast. I mean, that's what we're
Yeah.
driving towards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So hopefully 2050 will
Hope
be
so.
there.
Hope so. New building.
New building would be nice.
We've always had to restore buildings, is what we
Yeah.
say, which is great. We've done this last one. We've done a great job. It's just,
Yeah,
that's difficult.
Our first building was probably our nicest as
Yeah.
far as how it looked. I mean, it was 11,000 square foot. And by the time that we moved over, so we call our buildings there K1, K2, K3, K4. K1, when we were there, we were so packed at one point that we had to get there early, take all the pallets and put them out in the parking lot so that we could drive the forklift inside. And by the time we got to K2, our second location, which was 15,000 square foot, we had both of them. Fab moved to K2, machining stayed at K1. Well, by the time Fab got over there, it was already full. I mean, there was no more room to expand. K3, gave us some room to stretch our legs with, 60,000 square foot. So that was helpful. But, K2 was a custom carbide cutting tool manufacturer. They had all manual grinders. It was nasty. I mean, we blew black boogers for a week after going inside of that place. I think they had 3 light bulbs that worked in the
Yes.
whole facility.
That was K2.
K2.
K3 was a textile plant that made chin straps for the military and tennis court lines for clay courts. And I don't understand what the people in lights was, but they had something against light because they didn't like it.
They didn't want to see what they were doing.
We had to walk around with flashlights.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
it
they
was-
were working in there.
Yes.
That was different. So, and we had to redo lights, redo electrical to get everything going. But the thing was, the first building, Matt thought we were actually going to be there 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
So we did it really nice. It has a beautiful conference room, beautiful offices. Then we did K2, and we were growing so fast. It's like
We didn't even spend time.
yeah, I don't think we're going to be here that long. And then the big facility we're in, we just wanted the manufacturing space to be awesome, and then we want to see how long we're going to be there. But I mean, 60,000 is a lot, but we're filling it up pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah. I want a new building so bad I can't stand it. But I think that's just the vainness in me. You know, a new big shiny building on the side of 85
Yep.
with the big sign, you know. I don't think that's going to help me make any more money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just because I want it.
Yeah.
So I have to keep that in my mind. Is that's just me wanting to be fancy,
Yep.
you know. But that doesn't mean I don't want it,
Right.
you know. So, but well, gentlemen, I have enjoyed it. I would love for you to tell the audience where they can find you, find out more information about you. Are you guys on social medias?
Yep. We've got Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. We also got our website, kellyengineering.com. It's kelly-eng.com is where you can find us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank y'all for coming today. I enjoyed
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.